Hi again, everyone. Just before I begin, a quick thank you to everyone who's commented and liked and subscribed to this channel while I'm getting it going. It really is much appreciated. It seems to be building a nice little community now, and I hope we can interact all the more down the line. Now, the topic for today is one that I'm really hoping is going to get to men and their spiritual transformation, because I feel we're shortchanged a bit in our understanding of what it means in this day and age. We have a more feminine, softer understanding of it, which I don't think creates the true transformation. Now, there are two ways to view this. Number one is in the mainline church, which tends to be quite soft, quite mundane, quite sweet these days. You get glimpses of the true transformation in some of the older hymns that you might sing, but most churches don't sing those anyway now. It's all that Coldplay type music, which doesn't speak to people like me. And more broadly speaking, when you do go to church, you do find it just feels soft, and it feels it's detached from these experiences of great death and rebirth, the great spiritual insights, the raw power. And I think that means men aren't that inspired by it. They think, it's just not what I'm looking for, The flip side is the New Age. Lots of people go to the New Age if the church isn't working, or just ignore the church entirely. Because the New Age, I think, does approach the issues of modernity in perhaps a cleaner manner. It goes a bit deeper. And there's no doubt there is real spirituality in there that's often combined with practical teachings, accessible intros into the idea or the core ideas of spirituality, the ego, if you like, as a limitation of what you truly are. That's the self-centered self, if you will, the mind. And the small self and the big self with a capital S, you could say that's, again, the ego or consciousness. And all of these things can, like I said, be very, very good intros. But there are some issues in there. Number one, I think they can play into a sort of individualism. Me and my enlightenment. I don't need the tradition. I don't need to be part of the broader collective. The great ancient sacred history, which I think is unwise and can often lead to lots of trapdoors. And perhaps also the manipulative masters. They're famous now in the New Age world. Usually half of them are angling for some sex with the women that tend to be drawn to these movements. Not all of them, to be fair, but it is a big problem in that world. But more broadly speaking, I've found the marketing very suspicious of the New Age movements. You'll often find there might be like a woman praying on a rock in Bali as the sun goes down. And to me, it looks more like a health retreat than anything to do with real spiritual transformation. And I think that's part of the marketing to appeal to women, because broadly speaking, the New Age does tend to appeal to women that bit more. I've had flirtations with the New Age thing many years back. I started with people like Eckhart Tolle, who I'm still fond of to this day. Although, again, I don't like that he's divorced from a tradition. And Muji, I went to Muji's intensives a few times in Portugal. And I noticed something interesting there. There were women there in their 40s quite often, quite attractive a lot of the time, always wearing the Indian garb, fully into it. And they had a new name, like their real name might be Laura, but they've changed it to like Advaita or something like that. And it's very sweet, and I'm glad that they're healing in their own way. But through a red pill lens, at the time I was, half into spirituality, half imbibing the red pill. And I could see what had happened. These women had largely probably slept around in the major cities of the West, London, Paris, New York, and gone for the corporate roles and all that sort of thing. And it hadn't worked out, and now they were looking for something else in life. Obviously the man didn't work out, the job didn't work out, but spirituality can work out. And in a way, the Muji teachers, the Eckhart Tolles, they really are great at times. But on the other side, I find it can just be a little bit about making people feel better some of the time. And again, I'm not quite sure that this idea that everybody's going to get enlightened because they go and listen to Muji or Eckhart Tolle every week is necessarily true. I'm not even sure that's supposed to be true. In my understanding, I feel that we tend to have an elite of spiritual masters, if you will, and they should feed into the tradition and guide us in a shared manner. But that's maybe a bias of my own. But it did make me realise this is a female spirituality, ultimately. Now, spirituality, broadly speaking, is genderless, but I do think, again, it manifests in different ways, speaking to the female and masculine soul. And the female tends to like to be nourished and healed and loved. And as I've said before, this may well be because nature acts as her initiator, the period, childbirth, these sorts of things. So her instinct isn't these great journeys of death and rebirth, which may appeal to the male. That's the real male spiritual journey, is facing hell, ultimately, and transcending hell. I think intuitively, maybe I just speak for myself, but I don't quite like to see women in hellish positions. I think there's something innate in the male soul which knows we have to go out and fight the demons. We have to go out and face hell, fight the dragon. And a society that says women go and do that too, personally for me, it doesn't quite ring true. I think their role, their divine role is different. I'm sure I'll get in trouble for that with many of the modern feminists and so on. But I think it's evident, and I think it's evident throughout culture, throughout time. In all the great traditions, you'll find that model, and it's for a reason. So in essence, I think that's why the New Age appeals to women. But when it comes to men, I don't think that they're quite going to the real heart of what transformation is, which, as I often say, is in death and rebirth. The man must go to hell to transform, to become who he really is. I've spoken before about Joseph Campbell's Monamyth, the idea that we have the call to adventure in our known world, and we have to go into that unknown world, the subterranean world, hell, if you like, and face our darkness, face our challenges. Now, they'll be unique to us all, because we've all got a unique challenge. Maybe for some of us it's fear, maybe for some it's lust, maybe for some it's envy or greed. But we're going to have to face that down, because that's the demon that's working through us, and it's limiting us and ultimately corrupting us and the world around us. So we go into that journey of initiation, and then we go through the period of death and rebirth. What that means is we shed our old skin. It's not so much that you die as who you are now. It's more you're transformed, you're evolved. So you're still you, your essence is still the same, but it's evolved, it's transformed, and we come through that experience back into the known world, and we have a gift to give, so the teaching goes. Of course, there are plenty of examples of this in pop culture and our personal lives. We can say someone who suffered a brutal addiction, maybe. They had to go into that hell and face it down, and that old identity had to perish for a new identity, or even sometimes a lack of identity, to be born. And then that can come back into the world, and maybe you can help other people with that challenge, with that transformation. And again, I think this is evident in the Christian tradition, this idea of darkness. It's not very well expressed by the church, but it is expressed in the Christian mythos. Of course, Christ going into the desert, facing the devil. And I think, again, this is a journey that we have to emulate in our own way. I was speaking to a friend recently who said, he's going through a dark patch, and I know people say you can find God in the darkness, find yourself in the darkness, but I just don't feel that. I feel I'm getting to the point where I just don't know what to do anymore. And I said, well, that's it. That's the precursor. When we're in the darkness, of course we can't see hope. We can't see revolution, transformation, because we're stuck in the dark period. But the dark night of the soul is necessary for us to humble ourselves. That's the key. This is why you have all the great teachings in spiritual and personal transformation for men. Joseph Campbell's great teaching, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. We have to go into the darkness, what we fear. And when we're in there, we're not going to see the treasure. We're going to see ultimate fear, ultimate terror. But if we face it, and it might take us decades to truly face it, we will evolve. We will find the treasure, and then we will find our true role in life that the universe, or God, wants, if you prefer religious language. Now, again, the second form of that is Christ himself. In the New Testament, we see he goes to the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the broken. And through our modernist lens, we'll say, oh, isn't that nice? Christ is like a good old left-winger, wants to go and help the poor and the needy. Now, on a surface level, that's true, and there's nothing wrong with helping the poor and the needy. Of course there's not. It's an important civic duty, you could say. But the reality, I think, of what's going on here, the deeper spiritual dimension, is that Christ knows these people are in the darkness. And when you're in the darkness, you're closer to being saved. Because, like I say, your pride is probably pierced. And you're holding your arms up looking for an answer, unless you've really turned to darkness, which some people do, and then real darkness and death will fall upon you. But a lot of people who are in that state are willing to hold their hands up, and they have to get to that state of, I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm being ripped apart. And that comes in a myriad different forms. Sometimes it's mental health, sometimes it's a breakup, sometimes it's a bereavement, sometimes it's an addiction, sometimes it's poverty, whatever it may well be. Sometimes it's riches, But whatever it is, it takes people to that place of humbling, and that will provide an aperture through which the true light can come in. And to be blunt, a lot of people who aren't willing to go there or don't have the preconditions to go there will just never be interested in it. That's why spirituality transformation isn't that interesting to people in modernity, because they're largely stable. They're not on the precipice of death. They're not deeply drawn to these themes. So they think, well, everything's fine. But again, it's why when people go through challenging experiences of varying forms, bereavements, prison, near-death experiences themselves, all of a sudden the safety of modernity's gone. And then you really do look at your life. You really do look at existence. You think, why am I here? What is this? At that point, you may well be opened to deeper realization and deeper truth. So wherever you are in that journey listening to this, whether you have the gift of a challenge or whether you're just deeply drawn to transformation, it doesn't really matter, because it's all the same transformation ultimately. It's the breaking of pride, the humbling, the willingness to face your darkness, the willing to be totally open about that, ideally with God and another man, or a tribe, even better. That is the precursor to the spiritual transformation. It's the accepting of the pain, if you will, the facing of what you truly are, no holds barred. Not looking good for ladies, not looking good in front of other people, not looking good for your career, but simply showing what you are in your totality. And that's scary. It feels like the floor has been pulled away from underneath you, and you don't know where you are anymore in your life. You feel like you're in free fall. But that is the necessary precursor. And once you go through that, that becomes the great realization, the great transformational experience that shows you your true self. You're then aligned with God, and then you can understand the tradition in its fullness. Now, of course, this is very much a mission of mine to try and reawaken these truths, very much through the 7 steps and the group work I'm doing. You can explore all that on the Substack. I'll link that down below. And I really hope to build on this as we develop more and more, and these ideas become more normalized amongst the audience, and then we can get to the specifics and so on. Now, there's plenty to talk about, plenty of content to make down the line, but this will always be the core. And for those who are interested, do reach out, because in a month or two, I will look at starting the group work with men who are interested. For now, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, as I said at the beginning, for your support. It really is greatly appreciated. And keep fighting the good fight. See you again soon.